What is up, and welcome back to the Lakers Theory podcast. We are back because Anthony Davis is back. I am Shane Jackson. Joined with me, as always, is Austin Case. I know we were just talking about it right before we jumped on. It has been a while since we got on. The last podcast I remember doing is when basically everybody got injured. LeBron just got injured, and everything was falling apart. And we said we don't know the next time we're going to record a podcast, and that was true because we did not know. There were times where we thought about it, and schedule complications just made it not work out. Last week I thought was the closest we got to like really having a podcast. I think it was last Sunday or Monday or whatever. And basically what I wanted to have that podcast be was like, is the season over? Like, because it felt like for the first time all year, the Lakers title hopes and really any hopes of having any meaningful postseason run was over. I think that's changed, and that's what this podcast is probably going to be as of May 9th, Sunday, May 9th, when the Lakers picked up a big win over the Suns, 123-110. So that will be the bulk of this show, but we'll sprinkle into what's happened since the last time we talked as well throughout the show. Austin, my first question to you, first of all, other than how you were doing, because you should probably tell people basically what you've been up to, but are the Lakers back? Is Anthony Davis back? And is there reason to have hope once again?
Well, to like your first question, I guess, I have not been up to anything. I think I see you once a week now anyway. I don't know. I feel like Anthony Davis's game was what we've been waiting for this entire season from him. And so if this is what we are going to get from him from now on, then I do feel like the Lakers title chances are back. And like I really believe that with him playing well, and then once we get LeBron back, and you just assume he's going to play well. They're going to have some kinks here, but like this is what we wanted to see. We finally saw Anthony Davis at full potential, and it took 68 games or something like that to finally get it. So if that's what it takes, then yeah, I'll be happy. But I feel a lot better today than I did a week ago about the playoffs. Yes. I was very worried. I was like, we're probably I honestly was like, we're not gonna make it out of the first round. Like, it doesn't matter who we play. It's like they're not meshing. AD is not playing well, and then LeBron is banged up a little bit still. So my hopes were very dim.
Yeah, and that's fair. We talked about this in a non-podcast setting, but basically all the struggles, the concerns as of a week ago stemmed from Anthony Davis. I mean, this team is built on the idea of two stars, right? And everyone else is supposed to follow them and follow their lead. And yes, it is a better roster than they had last year. But at the end of the day, it's still built on the idea that Anthony Davis and LeBron James are going to carry this team. And Anthony Davis in particular, I mean, he was not setting the right example, if you want to call it that. I mean, it did not seem like a guy who was as motivated to be out there. And I know he had mentioned multiple times in post-game settings that he was still getting his legs under him as well. But it felt like, any hope of what you thought this team was going to accomplish, I mean, there was no reason to have any faith or confidence in that as long as Anthony Davis looked like this version of Anthony Davis. And that all changed just like that this past weekend. I mean, it really started in the Trailblazers game, even though it was in a loss. I think you started to see Anthony Davis be himself, and he put up a ridiculous stat line in that one as well. But this one was in a win, and it was a bonkers stat line. 42 points on 13 of 27 shooting. He collected 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks in 41 minutes. Exclamation point at the end of the game with that reverse oop dunk from Caruso. And you had mentioned that he screamed, "I'm back," similar to he said, "We back" a couple of days ago for Nuggets or whatever that was, and then they immediately blew it. But this one felt different. He wasn't saying "we are back." He's saying, "I, Anthony Davis, I am back." And that is fair. This is the first time we have seen Anthony Davis look like anything remotely like he looked last summer. Anthony Davis at times in the bubble, the postseason, all that, looked like maybe not only the best player on his team, but the best player in the freaking league. right?
Yeah.
I mean, there were times when he was just dominant, and you were like, "Holy shit, this guy is capable of doing anything." And that's why he was getting MVP buzz and all that. And to say he was underwhelming would be an understatement. But what we saw through 60 plus games, I mean, there was injuries along the way. There was a shorter offseason, all that stuff. But finally, when the Lakers backs are up against the wall, when nobody's believing in Anthony Davis, he finally looked like the version that we saw last year. And that is why, as of today, is the first time I have felt optimistic about the Lakers in freaking months. Like, it is crazy. Like, we had excuses for them all damn year.
Yeah,
growing pains, all that stuff, shorter off season, and all of them were valid. But there was no reason to be like, yeah, I'm excited about what they can do until now. And it took basically us counting them out for them to reach this point. And it's just one game. Who the hell knows if they're going to carry that into what we think they're going to carry it into. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like we were making excuses all season for them being terrible. Which I mean, AD missed like 2 months, so and then LeBron missed a month. So, naturally they are not going to be a very good team without their 2 best players. But even when they were both on the court and everyone was playing, they still had a lot of issues. And, I really feel like it stemmed from Anthony Davis just not really being himself. And really him just not being what we were used to seeing from playoff Anthony Davis. And so that was our expectation over the course of this year. Like, we're going to have the best big man in the NBA on this team. And that's just not what we saw until last night. So I'm really optimistic now that Anthony Davis has finally shown us this, and like it makes me really hope that like he is back. And I feel like I take his statement when he said that like he's ready now, and so like he's got that feeling, he's got the fire inside where like he's ready to get to work. And maybe it did take them falling to the 7th seed and having to be in this play-in tournament and everybody saying, the Clippers are better, the Jazz are better, all these teams are better, and that they don't have a shot anyway. If that's what it takes, then, let it be. Because if I remember correctly, that was the take last year too, when everyone was on the Clippers, and at the end of it all, we were popping champagne and getting shitty drunk together. So,
and that's a dynamic worth mentioning now too, if you want to get into. I mean, there's a lot of things. I don't know how long this podcast is going to be. This is there's a lot of things to dive into based off really just one game. But I'm fascinated all the different angles we can go with, and just for clarification right now, we're going to do a lot more podcasts moving forward as the regular season wraps up, and basically every single postseason game that we can as well. So we will not have as long of an absence yet again as we did just last time. So make sure you're following on us on all platforms, wherever you get your podcasts, over at Lakers Theory. But no, that dynamic that you mentioned, that sort of motivation tactic, it's rare that the defending champ has this sort of like bulletin board material, if you want to call it that. Like, it's rare that you have people doubting you the way that people were doubting the defending champs as of like 7 days ago or 5 days ago, whatever you want to say. And it was all fair. And I've always kind of scoffed at the idea that, I covered KU a few years ago. They were the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, and they were like, well, we were offended that people were picking Maryland to beat us. It's like, it's NCAA tournament. It's a 1-game sample size. Like, all that fake, like, ways to gas you up and get you hyped for a game, it didn't feel authentic. This feels real. Like, people legit doubted the Lakers, and they still do. Like, I mean, there's very fair concerns for them as well. But I think that part is interesting to me that we haven't really seen before, is that the Lakers, the defending champs, are going to be doubted this year, and no matter where they end up on the seeding line. And I think, to me, that brings a whole different dynamic to the postseason that I wasn't ready for. So I do want to say, though, like, we keep talking about, we had excuses for them throughout the year, right? But Anthony Davis, when Anthony Davis was with the team, right, before he went down, the Lakers were the number 2 overall seed. They were 21-6, 21-7, something like that, and he went down with his calf injury. And so they were still very good. And even after AD went down, they still had a run there with LeBron, a LeBron-led Lakers team that were pretty good as well. So there have been moments about this team, but nothing that got me as optimistic as Sunday did. And that's really because I think Anthony Davis has always been kind of the key that unlocks this whole thing for the Lakers. Like, to me, it spoke volumes that Anthony Davis got here and said, LeBron, you're playing defense. Like, there's no if, ands, or but about it. Like, you're playing defense because I'm playing defense, and everybody bought in. They became the best defense in the NBA. Like, to me, that's just an example of what Anthony Davis brings to this team that I don't think the Lakers really had. And without that, they have no shot at winning a title. I don't care how much I love LeBron or obsessed with him. Like, Anthony Davis would be the difference in them winning a title and not. So that is where the optimism comes from, as we've kind of alluded to. Is there anything in particular you saw yesterday that is worth mentioning? It doesn't have to be Anthony Davis, but it can be Anthony Davis.
Not that I can think of, honestly. I just kind of scanned it through the stat line, and I don't think we actually ever got to talk about this, but the Lakers picking up Ben McLemore, I actually love that. I've noticed he does get inconsistent at times, but if he's on, he is firing. And I honestly believe KCP and Benny Mac, if we get a game where they are just both hitting it, or they can alternate games when they're on, and then sometimes sprinkle them when they're both on, that's going to be really awesome to see in the playoffs. So I don't think we ever got the chance to talk about the Benny Mac acquisition, but I was really excited about it, and I really came to like it.
Yeah, I think he might have signed right either the day we did the last podcast or the day after. So that shows how long it's been. But yeah, you're right. Last night he hit a shot from the top of the key that was really late, and the shot clock, AD just kind of underhanded to him, and he just drained it from the end at the end of the shot clock. And yeah, you can just see just how loaded they are. I mean, last night's win came without LeBron, Kuzma, and Schroeder on this roster in the mix as well. So Ben McLemore's not where I would have gone. Alex Caruso is the first non-Anthony Davis player I wanted to mention, because he has been really good the last couple of games. 17 points for him against the Suns. I believe he scored 18 against the Blazers. He's just become more of an offensive threat than he has been previously, and I think it's by design. And where it's interesting is because Alex Caruso has always been viewed as this guy that is built to play his best around LeBron, right? And he's played really well the last couple of games without LeBron. I know it's just 2 games, but I think that speaks volumes to kind of his more aggressive mindset, and that he's, I think there was a play where he drove really hard to the rim late in the shot clock. I mean, he's showing the ability to, I guess, be more aggressive on the offensive end that I've really enjoyed. I will forever stand Alex Caruso, but he especially has been impressive the last couple of games. Has he, is that something you've noticed as well, Austin? Or
yeah, I always feel like he takes a back seat for most of the time and just kind of plays his role. And so it's really nice to see some of these guys just be aggressive. When LeBron's not there, it kind of opens things up for a few more guys to kind of just them draw up plays for and stuff like that, and just let them be creative, which hopefully can help them in the playoffs if they can make a deep run this year. These guys just have the confidence to be able to do this, and maybe it's LeBron's on the sideline, and it's a certain lineup out there, and he's Bron's over there yelling at them, Caruso, we know he can put up a good stat line. So it's be aggressive, just do your thing and they'll be okay. So it's nice to see that. And it's his offensive capabilities are really coming to light this season.
And the 8 assists as well. I hit, the back cut to Wesley Matthews. That was really nice. And then obviously that lob to AD at the end was from Alex Caruso. as well. Big fan of the way AC has played the last couple of games. The other player I wanted to mention was KCP. Even though based off just the stat line you're seeing right now, maybe he's not necessarily noticeable. I mean, he did score 17 points, but really his contribution was on the defensive end, just chasing Booker all the way around. I thought he did a great job. He does a really good job of like getting through screens somehow, and he's catching these guys who like to run off screens and stuff like that. So I was very impressed with KCP's defense in particular, and I think that can carry us in the conversation about the potential matchup because it feels like the Lakers Suns is a likely outcome. I don't know. It's probably the most likely outcome for the playoff seeding there in the 2-7 if the Lakers obviously win the play-in game. But I am actually, I don't know how you feel, but I actually would like that. Like, I think this is a matchup that maybe I'd be more nervous about if it was deeper in the postseason, if that makes sense. I think the Suns are so young and lack kind of the postseason experience that I feel like them facing the defending champs out of the gate in the first round is just a brutal task. I don't know if I don't think they would be favored. That doesn't seem like a Vegas thing. I assume the Lakers would be favored to win the series, but that doesn't seem like something the Suns would want. And more in particular, I mean, it's the matchups. AD just dominated the hell out of them inside. They don't really have an answer in the post. And then you forget, oh yeah, their other super large human being, LeBron James, wasn't even in the game. And then KCP's defense on one of their best offensive players just shows that I think matchup-wise, this is a very ideal first round for the Lakers, all things considered, when you factor in that the Lakers would have to play the play-in game to get here.
Yeah, I think I would be really comfortable with the Lakers playing the Suns. Like, yeah, I mean, just because I feel like the Lakers have the matchup advantage. Like we see what AD did. So, how do they stop AD for 4 games? And then it's like, okay, you stopped AD. How do you stop LeBron and AD? So I feel like this would be a good series for the Lakers to really get a rhythm together, while also kind of being it is a test. Like the Suns are the number 2 seed because they are a very good basketball team. So it's not like, they're just a scrub team that just happens to get a high seed. Like they're a good basketball team, and it would still be a solid test for the Lakers. But I feel like it's a winnable series for them, especially if AD's playing at a high level and the Suns have a hard time matching up against him and finding an answer for him. And then you also throw LeBron James back in the mix. And so I feel like that would be a good series for them to kind of get their feet back under them and them to honestly figure out some lineup situations, because I think we might see that with these last 4 games of the season, them playing with the lineup a lot.
Yeah. I want to ask you real quick while we're on the topic of play-in and postseason and stuff, but Bill Oram of the Athletic kind of wrote an article. I think it was a couple days ago, yesterday. I can't remember when. But basically, the Lakers are going to be in the play-in game most likely. And I think he was writing how it was actually beneficial for the Lakers potentially to play that game. Like that's an extra game to kind of get into a rhythm, or potentially more. I think if you lose that game. Do you agree with that logic? I mean, LeBron, he's going to come back against the Knicks now. It'll be Tuesday night, right? Is what he's expected to come back. So then you'll get 4 games with him because they'll play Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that the stretch that we just decided?
Yes.
Okay. Tuesday against the Knicks, Wednesday against the Rockets, Saturday against Pacers, Sunday against Pelicans. Okay, so you have 4 games with LeBron in the mix, still getting used to him and all the lineups as you were just mentioning, and then now you throw in potentially another game. Is the play-in game, when you factor in that, worth it? And I know LeBron obviously does not like a play-in game, but do you, as a fan, Austin, think that this could be beneficial for the Lakers?
I do. I actually do, because I was looking at it and like I didn't understand how the playing game worked until just yesterday when I was actually looking into it, because the Lakers might be in it. So if they go in as a 7 or 8 seed, they have to lose twice. If they lose twice, then they're done. And so really for the Lakers to make it, they just have to win one game.
Yeah.
And like I do think that game could be beneficial, just because it's an extra game that they get to play together before they really get deep into it. But I can also see why, it could be a scary place because, if they do drop the first game and they just don't figure it out in those 2 games in the playoff, then they're just done and the season's over. But so I can understand why like LeBron would hate it, and maybe some other people would be like, this could be trouble for the Lakers. But when you are the defending champs, and like I feel like they would not let this opportunity slip like we've seen them do in a few games, even the past week. So I think it could be beneficial. If they are going to play the seeding game where they are trying to play a specific opponent, then like let's slip into this play-in tournament and just win that first game. And, I think as a 7 seed, or I think if you win that first game for them, that would shoot them to a 7 seed. And then if you lose and then you win the second game, you play as the 8 seed. So I mean, it could go either way for them, but I would like to see that, or I would feel that it could be beneficial for them if they just happen to be in this play-in tournament.
Yeah, I think so. I think Frank Vogel was quoted in the article basically saying that he doesn't look at it that way. I mean, anything can happen in a 1-game sample size. Someone could tweak their ankle, all that stuff, like bad night, off night, all that stuff. And then all that makes sense as well. And honestly, just speaking, I mean, if you go look back and look at the year the Lakers have had, I mean, remember that stretch where they were just like sleepwalking and they played 3 overtime games in a row? I think that was like February or whatever. Like it just, I mean, it just takes one of those weird nights where that's where I get a little more uncomfortable. But for me, I've wanted to avoid the playing game for a while, but it hasn't been the primary focus. For me, it's always been the seeding aspect of it. Like I want to do whatever it takes to avoid the Clippers in the first round. I will pretty much take anybody else at this point other than the Clippers. They just terrify me the most. And so I don't know. I would prefer not to see them right away. And for me, that's the primary concern. If it ends up being that the Lakers have to play in the playing game, which they probably will, then I guess I'm fine with it. I'll just be very stressed out about it. And we can watch it together if you want. So
yeah.
And so LeBron comes back tomorrow. I don't know. You could be listening to this on Tuesday. So he comes back Tuesday against the Knicks. Is there anything you're hoping to see over the next couple of games? We'll probably record a podcast within the next couple of days. But is there anything you're hoping to see with LeBron returning to the Knicks?
I want to see AD keep this level of play up. Like that was kind of a big thing last year, was get AD going, and then everything else will just fall into place. And so I really want to see them stick with that because it works. And so that's really the big thing. You get AD going, you get him in a groove and he's comfortable, then everything else is going to fall into place. And so I feel like that's a good model, to kind of base things off of. Like obviously there's still some other things they have to figure out. But I feel comfortable that, if you get these, top 2 things going, AD going, and then LeBron does his things, then things will be okay. So I just really want to see AD kind of really be a focal point at this point in the season when, we need him to be a big aspect of the Lakers.
Yeah. Even if we had recorded a podcast last week or during Doomsday and all that stuff, when the podcast is going to be very sad, I think my response, overall sentiment would have been the Lakers really just need one of these games. Like they just need one big win where you go, okay, that gives the confidence back to the team. It gives the confidence back to AD, and more importantly, then the rest of the team follows suit. I'm hoping that happened last night, that this is the game that did that this is all the Lakers needed. And so over the next couple of days, these next games or whatever, that's what I'm going to be looking for. Like, can they use this as kind of a springboard? Alex Caruso said, and immediately his TV interview was like, they still believe when they're at their best and they're healthy that they're the best team in the world. So is this going to bring that sort of swagger confidence back to this team that we haven't really seen a lot of this year, if at all? And if that's what it does and they can be in their best position possible against the postseason, I mean, that's all we really hope for. Honestly, a couple weeks ago, I just wanted them to be healthy for the playoffs, like, and just see what happens. But now, based off one game, I'm now at least optimistic that maybe we might get to see at least a better version of Lakers than I had previously anticipated, and maybe that makes the postseason more enjoyable. Whether or not that leads to a title or even a finals run remains to be seen. But for the first time in a while, I actually believe that the Lakers have a chance to make a run, and we are looking forward to doing a lot of pods about that and following them along the way until the season eventually ends. Let's hope it ends with some more popping of the champagne. Is there any final thoughts here, Austin, or is this going to do it for us?
I think this does it for me.
Okay, sounds good. I mean, that's what I thought. I thought this was a good way to end it. Again, we will be back. I mean, they play Tuesday and Wednesday, so we'll record at least a pod on one of those games, and we'll hopefully it's not a sad podcast again. They may lose both games, and we're just like, fuck it, this is over. let's just pack it in. But no, hopefully that's not what happens here. We'll see. But at least we're optimistic for the first time in a long time. He's Austin Case. I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you for listening to our first podcast back. And now that Anthony Davis is back, and we're looking forward to being back with him. See you next time, Lakers fans.